Hi everyone, welcome to Midnight Storytime. Before watching the video, please give me a like and subscribe. Thank you very much. In a bid to keep me by her side, the eldest daughter of the corporate empire loudly declared she would break her White Moonlight's legs. My name is Leo, and I have been married to Serafina Liu under a strict contractual agreement. On the day the contract expired, she tossed a check for $10 million at me. I struggled to keep my mouth from twitching upward, nearly letting out a snort of pure joy. Freedom. Finally, I wouldn't have to serve this pampered ancestor anymore. If I didn't leave now, her possessive White Moonlight, who returns to the country tomorrow, would hire someone to stage an accident and push me off the 30th floor. With this money, I could head north and buy a mineral mine. From then on, I'd never have to cater to anyone's whims again. Imagine 10 beautiful girls in bikinis fanning me every day. Pure bliss. But I had no idea that Serafina could hear my inner thoughts. Sitting across from me, her knuckles turned bone white as she gripped her wine glass. She stood up abruptly, snatched the check back, and tore it into 1,000 tiny pieces. With bloodshot eyes, she pinned me against the wall, blocking my escape. From this day forward, she hissed, "You are my man for real." The cold wall bit into my back. Serafina's perfume and her radiating fury enveloped me like a net. As she leaned in, her hot breath against my skin made my mind go blank. This isn't how the script was supposed to go. What happened to the peaceful breakup and going our separate ways? Serafina's eyes were crimson with rage, her words cold as frost. "You want to run, Leo? You think you could just take my heart and leave the capital in peace? My dear ancestor, you've got it all wrong." I thought desperately. I'm running precisely so I can have peace. If I stay, I'll be mincemeat by tomorrow. Her gaze darkened even further. She grabbed my tie and violently dragged me toward the door with staggering strength. "We're going back to my villa. Without my permission, you won't take a single step outside." She shoved me roughly into the back seat of her Bentley. The door slammed shut with a heavy thud, severing all my hopes of escape. The driver floored it, the car surging forward like an arrow. The atmospheric pressure inside the cabin was terrifyingly low. Serafina pulled out her phone and made a call, her voice devoid of any warmth. "Abel, get to the airport. Julian returns today. I've sent you the flight number. Watch him. Find an opportunity to break his legs. Make sure he stays in the hospital and minds his own business for a few days." My heart skipped a beat, and the hair on the back of my neck stood straight up. Damn, that's cold. She actually made a move. Is this crazy woman really going to go toe-to-toe with the chosen one, just for me? I'm dead. I'm so dead. This time, my expiration date just got moved up. Once Julian gets out of that hospital, his first order of business will be turning me into literal ash. Serafina hung up and turned to look at me, the flickering neon lights outside the window dancing across her face. A chilling smirk played on her lips. She clearly thought I was touched by her heroic risk. Her cold hand gripped my chin, forcing me to lock eyes with her. Her tone was suggestive yet laced with lethal intent. "Scared? Afraid I'll get hurt for your sake?" I didn't dare utter a word. I just shook my head frantically. She leaned in closer, her breath ghosting over my skin. "Don't worry. What's the harm in taking on the whole world for you? The only person I'm scared of is you, boss lady." I screamed internally. This little stunt of yours is just pushing me straight into a volcanic crater. I wanted to cry, but the tears wouldn't come. I could only squeeze out a sycophantic smile that looked more painful than a sob. That night, I was placed under bedroom arrest in her mountaintop villa. 2 6 feet 3 inches bodyguards stood outside the door like iron towers. Forget a person, not even a fly was getting out of there. I lay on a $1 million mattress, hopelessly contemplating my life choices. Plan A failed. Time for Plan B. Suddenly, the bedroom door pushed open. Serafina walked in wearing a silk nightgown, the black lace hugging her perfect curves. Her damp hair fell over her shoulders as she sat on the sofa, holding a first aid kit. "Come here," she commanded. I shuffled toward her, the alarm bells in my head ringing at maximum volume. "Take your clothes off. I need to check something," she said. "I want to see if anyone else has left unnecessary marks on you." My brain felt like it had been hit by a flashbang. Help! Are we really doing the R-rated scenes now? I'm just a side character trying to escape. What marks could I possibly have? During the whole contract, I haven't even touched a female mosquito. My inner self was howling in a panic while my body stayed frozen like a log. I watched, wide-eyed, as she closed the distance. She reached out, her fingertips slowly undoing the first button of my shirt. I swallowed hard, feeling exactly like a fish on a chopping block. This time, there was truly no escape. The next morning, I saw the news over breakfast. A massive headline on the financial front page screamed, "Heir to the Julian Group. Mr. Julian suffers freak accident on airport escalator. Rushed to emergency surgery for multiple leg fractures." Attached was a photo of Julian on a stretcher, looking pathetic as he was loaded into the ambulance. I almost spat out my milk. I stared at the screen, then at Serafina. She was leisurely sipping her coffee, glancing at me from the corner of her eye with a look that screamed she was waiting for a compliment. "See? I handled him for you. This crazy woman actually did it. Abel's mission capability is terrifyingly efficient. This wasn't just breaking a leg. He went straight for permanent disability. But hey, it works for me. If Julian is hospitalized, he won't be able to get out of bed for at least 3 months. I'm safe for now. Time to devise a new escape route. Plan B, initiate." Serafina set down her coffee cup and dabbed her mouth with a napkin. "Today, you're coming with me." She stuffed me into a different car and took me to the most prestigious luxury mall in the capital. "My father's birthday banquet is in a few days," she said, her eyes half closed. "Pick out a gift." I followed behind her listlessly. I was just a human prop. Whatever she bought had nothing to do with me. She stopped in front of an antique display case featuring an ancient piece of jade. It had a warm hue and was exquisitely carved, clearly worth a fortune. "Let me see this phoenix through peonies piece," she told the clerk. The shop assistant immediately donned gloves and carefully retrieved the jade. My eyelids twitched. This jade? I remembered it. A plot point exploded in my brain. Whatever you do, don't buy that. That thing is toxic. This jade had been soaked in a chronic poison called 7-day rot. It's colorless and odorless, but with long-term wear, the toxins seep into the skin. If the old man wears this for less than 3 months, he'll drop dead. After that, the Liu family falls into chaos. Her ambitious second uncle will seize power, and the company will be stolen. Serafina will go from the queen of the capital to a bankrupt socialite. Eventually, that psycho Julian will find her and lock her in a golden cage. Such a tragic fate for a girl. Serafina, who was holding the jade, suddenly froze. Her grip tightened until her knuckles turned white, her eyes turning as sharp as a hawk's. A few seconds later, she slammed the jade back onto the velvet cushion. Her voice wasn't loud, but it made the clerk jump. "Wrap it up." My heart went cold. It's over. She still wants to buy it. I had to find a way to stop her without blowing my cover. As I was racking my brain for a way to accidentally shatter the jade without looking suspicious, Serafina turned around. She pointed to a silver longevity suit tucked away in a corner, a common design, worth maybe a few $1,000s at most. "On second thought, this is better," she said, smiling at me. "You're right. Father is getting older. Something practical is better." I was stunned. What did I say? I haven't uttered a single word. The old man's birthday banquet gathered all the heavy hitters of the capital. Serafina walked in with her arm linked in mine, her high-end gown outshining everyone at the party. In the middle of the banquet, her second uncle, Marcus Liu, stepped onto the stage with a jovial smile, holding an exquisite antique box. "Big brother, I know how much you love jade. I went to great lengths to find this masterpiece from the Eastern Zhou period. I wish you health, wealth, and longevity." The box opened to reveal another ancient jade piece that looked even more priceless than the first, prompting gasps of admiration from guests. My heart tightened. "Here it comes." Serafina smiled, picked up a microphone, and spoke softly. "Uncle, that is very thoughtful of you. However, before gifting jade, it's always best to authenticate the quality first." As soon as she finished, several experts in white lab coats entered with professional equipment. They began a series of tests right in front of everyone. Before long, the verdict was delivered. This jade contained a potent toxin that, with prolonged wear, would damage the central nervous system and lead to organ failure. The hall erupted in chaos. Marcus's face turned deathly pale. The old man was so livid his body shook. He pointed at his brother for a long time, unable to utter a single word. Serafina supported her father and looked coldly at her uncle. "Uncle, do you have anything to say for yourself?" Marcus was immediately restrained by bodyguards. The birthday banquet had transformed into a live broadcast of a high-society family feud. In the midst of the chaos, no one noticed Serafina in the corner. In a place hidden from view, she lightly hooked her finger into my palm. She leaned close to my ear, her warm breath causing an itchy sensation. "My little prophet, what reward would you like tonight? Give me 10 million and let me disappear." I screamed internally. My face, however, flushed uncontrollably from her proximity. This couldn't go on. Not only was I failing to escape, but I was being bound to her even tighter. Her gaze toward me had shifted from seeing a contract boyfriend to seeing a rare treasure. It was full of possessiveness, curiosity, and a type of fanaticism I couldn't comprehend. I had to make her hate me. I had to make her kick me out herself. Self-sabotage plan. Phase 1. Reveal a crude nature and challenge her obsession with cleanliness. Serafina took me to the most expensive French restaurant in the capital, where the average bill per person was 5 figures. The guests around us were dressed in formal attire, their gestures elegant. Even the clinking of cutlery sounded like a symphony. The appetizer was premium Kobe beef. I completely ignored the sparkling silverware beside me. I reached out, grabbed a piece of the medium-rare beef with my bare hands, stuffed it into my mouth, and chewed ravenously. Juices dripped from the corner of my lips. I intentionally made loud, smacking noises, causing the people at the neighboring table to stare. "Look at your germophobic self. Kick me out of here right now. Let me show you what it's like to be dirt that doesn't belong with a high-born lady like you." Serafina's hand, holding her fork, stopped in midair. She looked at me, silent for nearly half a minute. Just as I thought she was about to explode in a fit of rage, she set her fork down, took a napkin, and gently wiped the grease from the corner of my mouth. There was no disgust in her eyes. On the contrary, there was a hint of pity. "Does it taste better when eaten by hand?" She followed my lead, picking up a piece of beef with her fingers and taking a small bite. "You're right, it's much better this way." She smiled at me. "You must have endured so many hardships in the past that you feel even using a fork is a form of restraint. In the future, you eat however you want." This raw authenticity, untouched by secular definitions, is simply too charming. I stood there holding a piece of beef in my hand, completely stunned. Phase 2. Reveal a lustful nature and challenge her possessiveness. One of her friends was hosting a pool party and insisted I come along. The opportunity had arrived. The pool was filled with gorgeous women in bikinis, every single one of them with a smoking hot body. I intentionally acted like a man who had never seen the world, eyes wide, scanning from left to right, up and down, practically drooling. "Wow, look at those legs. Look at that waist. This is paradise on earth. Look at me, Serafina, look at me. I'm just a scumbag who can't control his lower half. Let your jealousy flare up, drown me in the pool, and throw my body out." Serafina, who was chatting with a few high-society socialites, noticed my wandering gaze. Her expression turned ice-cold instantly. Without a word, she walked over and, in front of everyone, aggressively shed her sun cover-up. Underneath was a custom-designed black swimsuit that was even more provocative, accentuating her perfect curves. The attention of every person there immediately shifted from the other girls to her. Like a queen, she lunged forward and dragged me down into the water. The cold pool water made me shiver, but before I could react, she grabbed my face and kissed me in the middle of the crowd. It was an invasive kiss, a blatant declaration of ownership. When she finally pulled back, she leaned close to my ear and whispered in a voice only I could hear, fueled by her intense possessiveness. "My man's eyes are only permitted to look at me. If you keep looking elsewhere, I'll gouge them out." She paused, her tongue lightly grazing my earlobe. "Love you." Those last 2 words were incredibly sultry, but they made me tremble with such fear I nearly choked on the water. She's crazy. This woman's possessiveness is even more terrifying than Julian's. I've truly jumped out of the wolf's mouth, only to fall into a tiger's den. Phase 3. Reveal a lack of culture and challenge her elite aesthetic tastes. For some reason, she decided to take me to a modern art exhibition. I stood in front of a Picasso, a canvas filled with distorted blocks of color and warped lines. I decided to execute my final self-destruction plan. I pointed at the painting and, in a voice loud enough for the entire gallery to hear, made an eloquent declaration. What the hell is this mess? My 3-year-old nephew draws better than this. Come on, insult my lack of taste. Call me a piece of rotten wood that can't be carved. Then kick me out of this highbrow sanctuary of art. The people around us looked at me with pure disdain. The curator, his face pale with offense, started to walk over to protest. Serafina stopped him. After listening to my profound critique, she actually nodded as if deep in thought. Then, she turned to the curator, her tone calm but indisputable. Leo is right. Art shouldn't pretend to be profound while distancing itself from the masses. These pretentious things that regular people can't understand don't deserve to be in my sight. The curator was so terrified he nearly wet his pants, nodding and apologizing incessantly. The next day, I heard that the Picasso painting worth hundreds of millions was taken down overnight. I lay on the villa sofa in total despair. This world is definitely insane. I gave up. My escape plans kept failing and only left me exhausted. I decided to take a detour, make money first. As long as I had enough capital, I didn't believe I couldn't escape. I lay by the outdoor pool, tanning and wearing sunglasses, while my mind started reviewing the financial news I had read before transmigrating into this book. Since I was bored anyway, I might as well daydream. Sigh, if only I had money now. I'd immediately buy up that garbage company called Spirit Tech. Right now, its stock price is at rock bottom. Nobody wants it even for free. But next day, the multinational giant Skyvault Group will announce an acquisition, and the price will jump 30 times over. When that happens, forget the North. I'll buy an entire island and become its lord. I'll never have to answer to anyone again. Serafina, lying on the lounger next to me, suddenly snapped her eyes open behind her sunglasses. She grabbed her phone, her fingers flying across the screen as she silently sent a message. Use all available liquid capital. At any cost, buy up every single share of Spirit Tech on the market. A month later, I was still calculating how to squeeze $100,000 out of Serafina as my startup capital. Serafina returned home wearing a sharp business suit and tossed a folder onto the coffee table in front of me. The title read, Asset Growth Report. Your investment plan from last month was very successful. She unbuttoned her blazer and sat opposite me, legs crossed, radiating her queen energy. We made $30 million. She slid a black card toward me. This is your share of the profit, $10 million. I stared at the blinding numbers on the report, then at the card that supposedly held $10 million. My hand started shaking like I had Parkinson's. I'm a millionaire, just because I lay by the pool and daydreamed? $10 million. Is this for real? Let me count the zeros. 1,000 million. Holy crap. With this kind of money, why would I even go to the North? Wait, that makes it even more vital to run. If that psycho Julian finds out I'm not only keeping Serafina, but I'm also this rich, won't he hit me with an intercontinental ballistic missile? Serafina heard my inner thoughts and likely misinterpreted my excitement for the plan's success and my anxiety over Julian's threat. She stood up, walked around behind me, and gently embraced me. She rested her chin on my shoulder, her warm breath hitting my neck. Don't be afraid, she said, her voice carrying a hint of tenderness and comfort for the first time. We have enough capital now to play a real game with him. However you want to play, I'll be right there with you. In that moment, smelling her faint fragrance and listening to her steady heartbeat, I felt a strange sense of security. It was the first time I'd felt this way since I arrived in this world. At the same time, in a luxury VIP suite at a private hospital in the capital, Julian had just had his cast removed. Struggling to stand with the aid of a crutch, he glared at the report handed to him by his subordinate, his face darkening. The Lu Group's assets had skyrocketed by hundreds of millions in a single month, and every clue regarding the mysterious mastermind behind it pointed directly to me, Leo. The fact that a mere pretty boy, kept by Serafina, someone he had never even deigned to look at, was responsible, sparked a venomous jealousy and hatred that devoured his sanity. Leo, he hissed my name through gritted teeth, the madness and obsession in his eyes almost turning physical. I will peel off your fake skin, layer by layer. Upon his discharge, Julian didn't come after me directly. Instead, he began a frenzied investigation, using every connection the Julian family possessed to dig into my past from head to toe. The results left him deeply satisfied. My file was empty. Raised in a remote orphanage, no parents, a background as clean as a blank sheet of paper. This was exactly what he wanted. He planned to expose me as nothing more than a social climber living off a woman, shaming Serafina and utterly destroying my reputation in the world of high finance. He organized a grand charity gala, inviting every prominent figure in the capital. It was a Hongmen banquet, a trap disguised as a feast, set specifically for me. Before the event, Serafina was picking out my formal wear, holding up two high-end suits and asking which one looked better. I lay listlessly on the sofa. Doesn't matter what I wear. I'm going to die of embarrassment tonight anyway. Julian is definitely going to announce that I'm an orphan to make everyone laugh at me. Actually, that's perfect. A status-conscious woman like Serafina will surely feel humiliated and kick me to the curb immediately. That $10 million breakup fee is as good as mine. Once that happens, the world is my oyster. As Serafina was adjusting my tie, her fingers suddenly stilled. I felt the aura around her turn ice-cold in an instant. She said nothing, but stepped out onto the balcony to make a quiet phone call. The gala took place in the magnificent, gilded ballroom of a five-star hotel. Julian, though leaning on a crutch, still carried the air of a graceful host as he greeted the guests. When he saw Serafina and me arrive arm in arm, a flash of resentment flickered in his eyes. As the party reached its climax, Julian took the stage and grabbed the microphone. Tonight, we also welcome a very special guest, Mr. Leo, who is here with Ms. Liu. He intentionally emphasized the words Mr. Leo. Mr. Leo is young and talented. To be able to capture Serafina's favor, he must be a rare genius. We are all quite curious. Which prestigious family does Mr. Leo hail from? In a split second, everyone's gaze shifted to me, filled with scrutiny, curiosity, and malice. I was just getting ready to play my part, acting panicked and not knowing where to hide, exactly like the script intended, when Serafina squeezed my hand and calmly led me toward the center of the stage. She took the microphone from Julian's hand, her aura completely overpowering the room. My man, of course, is no ordinary person. The moment her words fell, the heavy, ornate doors of the banquet hall were thrust open from the outside. An elderly European gentleman with silver hair and a sharp, spirited gaze entered with a steady gait, escorted by a team of black-suited bodyguards. Dressed in a pristine tuxedo and white gloves, he radiated an old-world aristocratic elegance that no actor could ever fake. He walked straight up to me, bowed a respectful 90 degrees, and spoke in fluent Mandarin. "Young master, the master sent me to fetch you. He says you've had enough fun out here. It's time to go home and inherit the family estate." The entire hall went deathly silent. My mouth hung open so wide I could have fit a chicken egg inside. What? Who is this old foreign guy? His acting is way too realistic. This has to be national treasure level performance. Where did Serafina find this extra? Oscar owes her a golden statue. Julian's face instantly shifted from smug triumph to a shade of white as pale as paper. Serafina looked at him coldly, a hint of mockery at the corner of her lips. "Mr. Julian, any more questions? Or do you wish to doubt the integrity of the Rothschild family?" Boom! The crowd erupted. The Rothschilds, the legendary family that controls the world's economic arteries. Julian had become a total laughingstock. The fatal blow he had painstakingly prepared had turned him into a literal clown. Amidst the buzzing whispers and mocking laughter, he practically fled the party. Seeing Serafina go to such lengths for me, not hesitating to fabricate such a world-shaking identity, I felt a strange, new sensation stir in my heart for the first time. On the way back to the villa, the car was silent. I stared out the window at the streets blurring past, my mind a mess of conflicting emotions. Finally, I couldn't help but break the silence. How much did it cost to hire that old gentleman? Serafina, who had been resting with her eyes closed, slowly opened them. She turned to look at me, her gaze perfectly calm. "He is real." I froze. She explained nonchalantly, "When we acquired Spirit Tech last time, one of their family's minor branches was in some trouble. I helped them resolve it as a favor, so they owe me one. I was completely speechless. I thought I was on level 1. I thought she was on level 5. As it turns out, she's already in the stratosphere. Those 30 million I earned while lying around? It turns out her support was the result of going head-to-head with the world's leading financial groups. Back at the villa, the living room lights were still on. Serafina kicked off her heels and walked barefoot to the bar to pour herself coffee. I noticed her rubbing her temples, her face showing a weariness I had never seen before. On the coffee table lay a stack of documents. I caught the title of the first one, Counter-Strategy Against the Julian Group's Intentional Short-Selling of Our Private Shares. Below it were several more files, all detailing Julian's recent dirty tricks, every one of which she had anticipated and neutralized in advance. She had been silently handling all these threats for me. Somewhere in my heart, I felt a gentle tug. As if possessed, I walked over and took the cold coffee from her hand. Under her puzzled gaze, I went to the kitchen, warmed a glass of milk, and placed it in front of her. "Don't drink too much coffee," I said, my voice a bit dry. Serafina was completely stunned. She looked up at me, and in those eyes that were always as cold as glaciers, something was melting. "What are you looking at?" "The book says you have a weak stomach. Staying up late like this will land you in the hospital. If you collapse, won't that psycho Julian turn me into ash? I'm doing this for self-preservation, strictly self-defense." Upon hearing my inner thoughts, her eyes unexpectedly welled up. A single tear rolled down her cheek and fell onto the back of my hand, scalding hot. She lowered her head and whispered in an incredibly soft voice, "Thank you." It was the first time she had ever said thank you to me. I felt awkward and tried to pull my hand away, but she gripped it tightly. That night, for the first time, I didn't complain internally. It seemed this woman wasn't so unbearable after all. Late at night, I was tossing and turning in bed when the bedroom door pushed open again. It was the same silk nightgown, the same Serafina. But this time, she didn't approach me with her usual aggression. She quietly sat by my bedside, looking at me in silence as the moonlight cast dappled shadows across her face. After a long time, she spoke, her voice carrying a barely perceptible tremor and a hint of caution. "Leo, if one day I can no longer hear your inner thoughts, will you still be this good to me?" My heart thudded. She really can hear them. Wait, what did she mean by that? Is she afraid of losing me? I looked at her, the fragility and insecurity nearly overflowing from her eyes. For a moment, I didn't know how to respond. Meanwhile, Julian was backed into a corner. Under Serafina's thunderous suppression, his company stood on the brink of bankruptcy. He had gone from a favored son of heaven to having nothing. The loss of everything pushed the madness and obsession in his character to the absolute limit. My phone rang, an unknown number. I answered, and Julian's cold, distorted voice came through. "Leo." In the background, there was the muffled, suppressed whimpering of a gagged woman. I knew that voice all too well. It was Serafina. The blood rushed to my head instantly, and my limbs went ice cold. "If you want her to survive, bring your 10 million and come alone to the Wild Bull Pier in the west suburbs. Don't even think about calling the police, or I'll show Serafina what true despair feels like." The call cut off, and my brain went numb. This is wrong. This is completely different from the book. In the original story, he was supposed to kidnap me to threaten Serafina. How does he dare lay a hand on her? How does he dare? An unprecedented wave of fury and panic gripped my heart like a giant fist. Running away, the north, bikinis, beautiful girls. All those messy thoughts vanished in an instant. I only had one thought. Save her. I have to save her. I rushed into Serafina's bedroom. Her phone was lying on the bed. I unlocked it with trembling hands. The wallpaper was a photo of me sleeping, sneaked when I wasn't looking. Below it was a tiny note, "My great protector." My heart twisted with a pain so sharp I could barely breathe. "You idiot, I'm no protector. I'm just a coward who wanted to run away." I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stabilize. Calling the police was a last resort. Julian was a madman now, capable of anything. I scrolled through her contacts and found the number saved as Butler, the head of that Rothschild-linked team. The call connected immediately, and a respectful, steady voice came through. "Young master, what are your orders?" My voice was hoarse with rage. "I need a special intervention. I don't care what methods you use. I need weapons, tactical gear, and the most elite combat team under your command. Price is no object. Understood. Everything will be delivered to your specified location within 30 minutes. I hung up and stormed into the dressing room, changing into a sleek, black athletic outfit. In the mirror, my eyes were cold and decisive, a gaze so foreign it felt like someone else was looking back. This time, I wasn't running away. I was charging into a war that belonged solely to me. Wild Bull Pier, West Suburbs. The air was thick with the scent of rusted iron and salt. The night wind was freezing, making the corrugated metal of the warehouses rattle. I crouched behind a shipping container, my mind racing through every description of Julian I had ever read. He was incredibly conceited, with a pathological obsession for control. He loved standing on high ground to savor his prey's final struggles. He would definitely be in the surveillance room on the second floor. And I remembered a detail from the book. He had an obsessive-compulsive trait. He hated the number 3. Therefore, in any of his hideouts, the space behind the third container on the left was always a blind spot for him. That was exactly where I was positioned now. I pulled a pair of night vision goggles from the tactical gear the butler had provided and slipped them on. Sure enough, the pier was littered with guards, both hidden and in plain sight, but my current position formed a perfect blind spot. Like a lizard clinging to the shadows of the containers, I slipped silently into the largest warehouse. As soon as I entered, I saw Serafina. She was tied to a chair in the center of the floor, her hair disheveled, her face paper white, and her mouth sealed with black tape. The moment her darkened eyes caught sight of me, they instantly ignited with shock. She began to shake her head frantically, muffled whimpers escaping her throat, signaling me to run. "Don't be afraid. I'm here," I mouthed to her silently. This was the first time I had ever proactively communicated with her, rather than passively letting her read my mind. Clap, clap, clap. Applause echoed from the second floor. Julian, leaning on his crutch, descended the dark staircase step by step with a sick smirk plastered on his face. How touching. 2 star-crossed lovers at the end of their rope. Too bad both of you die here today. Behind him stood several thugs, all armed. He walked up to Serafina and used the barrel of his gun to lift her chin. "Serafina, look at the man you chose. He's willing to throw away his life for you." Then, he leveled the gun at me. "Transfer the money to the account I specify, then chop off one of your own arms. Maybe then I'll consider letting her go." I looked at him coldly and took a step forward. "Let her go. I'll stay behind. Do with me whatever you want." Julian acted as if he'd just heard the funniest joke in the world. He laughed maniacally. "Who the hell do you think you are? A kept man thinks he's in a position to negotiate with me." The moment he threw his head back to laugh, at his most distracted, I pressed a button on the Vimo electronic watch provided by the butler. It looked like a standard sports watch, but with a faint click, every light in the warehouse and the monitors on the second floor cut out instantly. The world plunged into absolute darkness and silence. "What's happening?" Julian screamed in a panic. This was my moment. Guided by the positions I had memorized in the light, I moved like a hunting leopard, lunging straight towards Serafina. The darkness gave me the ultimate advantage. Julian's men were in complete disarray, their curses and heavy footsteps clashing in the void. I reached Serafina's side and used the tactical knife hidden in my sleeve to slice through her restraints with lightning speed. "Go now," I whispered, pulling her hand. "Run through the small door in the back. The butler's men are waiting." But she gripped my hand tightly, refusing to move a single inch. "I'm not leaving," she sobbed in the dark with unprecedented stubbornness. "If we go together." "Damn it. Turn on the lights. Get the backup generator running." Julian's roar echoed through the hollow warehouse. "Leo, you pathetic coward." A few seconds later, the emergency lights flickered on. Under the dim, yellow glow, everything was blurred, and we were completely exposed. Julian had already adjusted to the light. He was wielding a fire axe he had grabbed from somewhere. His eyes were bloodshot, and like a rabid beast pushed to the brink, he charged at us in a frenzy. "None of you are getting out of here." At that exact moment, the massive warehouse doors were blasted open from the outside. The team dispatched by the butler, a group of elite tactical specialists in black gear, swarmed in like a rising tide. They engaged Julian's thugs instantly. The scene descended into total chaos. the flash of blades, the shadows of combat, and the brutal sound of fists meeting flesh. I pulled Serafina tight against me, dodging attacks while desperately trying to move her toward the exit. But Julian's target had always been the two of us. He let out a guttural roar, swinging the fire axe with every ounce of his strength toward Serafina's neck. The strike was fast, lethal, and fueled by a suicidal determination. Serafina was completely frozen. My mind went blank. My body moved faster than thought. Without a second of hesitation, I spun around, shielding her entirely within my embrace. I used my back to take the fatal blow. Thwack! The dull, heavy sound of sharp object slicing into flesh echoed. The cold blade of the axe bit deep into my back, and an agonizing jolt of pain surged through my limbs like electricity. I let out a low groan, my legs turning to jelly, nearly buckling, but I refused to fall. Using the last of my strength, I held onto the trembling woman in my arms. I leaned close to her ear and whispered with everything I'd left. "Don't be afraid. This time, it's my turn to protect you." Julian was kicked away by the arriving guards and pinned to the ground. I couldn't hold on any longer. Still holding Serafina, both of us collapsed into a cold pool of blood. My consciousness began to fade, and the world spun out of control. My final thought before slipping into the darkness was, turns out, dying for her isn't that hard to accept. In fact, it feels worth it. I woke up to the smell of disinfectant, white ceilings, and white sheets. When I tried to shift, a searing, tearing pain shot through my back, making me gasp for air. "Don't move," a familiar voice whispered, thick with suppressed sobs. I turned my head to see Serafina slumped by my hospital bed. She was wearing a simple white t-shirt, her hair tied up haphazardly. She looked gaunt, with deep dark circles under her eyes. She had been watching over me like this for God knows how long. Seeing me wake up, her face first flooded with immense joy, and then tears fell like a string of broken pearls. "You're awake. You're finally awake." She reached out to touch me, but pulled back, terrified of hurting my wound. Her hands hovered in midair, trembling. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Leo. It's all my fault." She choked on her sobs, weeping like a broken child. I shook my head, wanting to speak, but my throat was so parched and raw that I couldn't utter a single syllable. She reacted immediately, flustered as she poured water and used a cotton swab to carefully moisten my lips. The hospital room was silent, save for the sound of her muffled sobbing. After a long time, she finally seemed to muster all her courage. She looked up at me, her eyes swollen from crying. "Leo," she took a deep breath, as if making a monumental decision. "I can hear your inner thoughts." I wasn't surprised at all. I just looked at her in silence, waiting for her to continue. "Since the second day our contract began, I've been able to hear them. I know you wanted to run away, to leave me, to go north to buy a mine, and find 10 beautiful girls to fan you. I know you thought I was crazy, annoying, an incomprehensible lunatic." With every word, her tears fell faster. "But I also know that despite that, you secretly swapped my coffee for milk because of my stomach. You worried about me in your heart when my second uncle plotted against me, calling him an old fox. You racked your brain to find a way to save my face when everyone was mocking me. And you came alone to save me when I was kidnapped, even though you were scared to death. You even risked your life for me." She couldn't go on, collapsing onto the bed, her whole body shaking with sobs. "I don't need a protector or a prophet. I just need you, Leo, the real flesh and blood you. I love you, not for your abilities or what you can provide, but simply because you are you." She lifted her tear-stained face, her gaze filled with a desperate, restless plea. "Can you please not go? Can you stay and be my man for real?" Watching her cry like a helpless child, my heart, which had always been set on escaping, finally softened. I didn't complain, not even in my head. I reached out with my uninjured hand, the one still connected to an N4 drip, and clumsily wiped the tears from her face. Then, under her intense gaze, I nodded solemnly. Serafina froze for a heartbeat. The next second, heedless of the wound on my back, she threw herself into my arms and sobbed uncontrollably, as if releasing all the accumulated grievances, fears, and insecurities of the past. I held her, gently patting her back. This time, I was completely willing. Julian met a tragic end. For kidnapping, attempted murder, and various financial crimes, the charges piled up until he was sentenced to life in prison. He will spend the rest of his days behind bars. The mighty Julian family tree collapsed along with him. Under the combined force of the Liu Group and our suddenly emerging investment firm, their market share was quickly dismantled, erasing the Julian name from the financial world forever. After I was discharged from the hospital, Serafina pampered me like I was made of porcelain. I truly lived a life of food served to my mouth, clothes provided to my hands. My daily routine consisted of lounging on the villa's sofa, eating fruit she peeled herself, and watching an 80-inch TV. TSK, TSK, TSK. Now this is the life. Although I didn't make it to the north, and my dream of 10 girls in bikinis fanning me never came true, having the capital's #1 female tycoon as my personal nanny seemed even better. Serafina, who was about to feed me a segment of a tangerine, paused for a moment. She leaned down and gave me a firm kiss on the cheek, grinning like a cat that had just caught a prize fish. Keep dreaming, handsome. Once your wound is healed, you're going to be a good boy, and come help me at the company. And so, I became the newly appointed special advisor of the Liu Group, a mysterious presence with no actual job title but the highest level of authority. My office was located within Serafina's executive suite, decorated even more luxuriously than hers. My daily work involved playing games, napping, and handling CEO Liu whenever she popped in for a work inspection. However, no one in the entire company, from the group's founding elders to the receptionist, dared to utter a single word of dissatisfaction. This was because the entire financial world was buzzing with legends about me. The stock god who turned $10 million in pocket money into a $30 million profit. The mysterious tycoon who reduced the Julian family to ash with a single conversation. And the Rothschild heir who won the heart of the Liu family's eldest daughter. All those friends who used to look down on me and call me a pretty boy were now falling over themselves to suck up to me. Every single one of them was ruthlessly blocked by Serafina. She scrubbed my world clean until she was the only one left in it. Sometimes, lying on the office sofa and looking out through the floor-to-ceiling windows at the bustling capital, I catch glimpses of my pre-transmigration self, the guy who had to work overtime until midnight in a tiny cubicle just to earn a few $1,000s. My current life feels like a dream. She walked over and sat beside me, naturally resting her head on my shoulder. What are you thinking about? I smiled and took a sip of milk. I'm thinking my wife is amazing. This time, I meant it with all my heart. The story ends here. It's a little surreal, but still good. Thank you everyone for listening.